The Goodwill Tour of the Creature Kings, Part 4, The Week of Red Teeth. Molt felt like something was a little off the moment he stepped into the clearing, a slight itch in his tail. Enough, he told himself. No more Mr. Pessimist, I'm a new lizard now. The threshold was a ring of standing stones in a patch of scrubland, outside a quaint little village that didn't appear on most maps. The air felt crisp and still. Ginny hovered in excited circles. Mr. Feathers pecked at the ground like he was practicing eating, even though as a ghost the skill was of no use to him. Molt checked his notes. He'd reread the muscled briefing notes on the train on the way in. He described them as languid, drowsy, easily bored. He envied them. The sun shone warmly, birds twittered. The smell of wild flowers floated on the wind. Bliss. He waved the glyph into the air. The world shifted. He found himself in a subterranean hall, narrow, cold, lit by flickering tallow candles. The walls were lined with mustelids of every kind, stoats and martins, ferrets and mink, even a wolverine or two, all watching him in the same predatory stillness. The high stoat stood on a raised stone, fur white as bone, eyes like polished amber. "You trespass," they hissed. "On the week of red teeth." Molt bowed, keeping his voice steady. "Esteemed court, I'm here on behalf of the office, to hear any grievances and to ensure the old pact still holds true." A ripple of outrage passed through the hall. The high stoat bared their teeth. "No outsiders may enter on this week. No voices may speak. No pacts may be touched." The crowd erupted, not in words, but in a frenzy of chittering, stamping and tail whipping. It sounded like a stadium full of tiny, furious gladiators. Molt raised both hands in placating gesture. "If I may present my credentials." He took his office ID card from his pocket. A wolverine exploded out of the crowd, snatched the card wallet from his grip and shredded it in 3 savage bites. "Tasty wallet," it growled. "Lizard for dessert." Molt fumbled for a calming wall glyph. A weasel leapt up, slapped it out of his hand and hissed, "No glyphs during red teeth." The high stoat raised a paw and the frenzy stilled. "Not now," they said. "Put him in the cell. The feast is later." Molt opened his mouth to explain. He didn't get the chance. Mustelids surged forward, swift and silent. Molt spun, looking for an exit. A marten blocked him, then a stoat, then a mink. Every tunnel was teeth. Molt dropped into a defensive stance he hadn't used his academy training. The mustelids looked delighted. Molt swung an elbow on instinct. It connected with a ferret who barely noticed. "Cute," it said, and bit his belt off. He was seized, dragged down the narrow tunnel. He tried to dig his claws into the floor. The stoat simply lifted him and kept going. They stripped him of his satchel, taking everything. Briefing notes, scroll and quill, sending sack, notebook, pens, even his belt. A stoat sniffed the sending sack and declared with ceremonial pride, "Offering accepted for a week of red teeth feast." Molt was thrown into a stone cell, barely large enough to stand in. His wrists were bound with a braided stoat cord, tight enough to numb his claws, clever enough to disrupt any glyph-forming gestures. The door slammed shut. The air was cold, the stone colder. Molt sat on the floor, tail curled around him, his scales scored with scratches and bite marks, trying not to think about the chanting echoing through the tunnels. Somewhere deeper in the warren, a roar rose, answered by another, the unmistakable sound of mustelids fighting, not in anger but in ritual, a hierarchy being rewritten tooth by tooth. A cheer went up somewhere below, the kind that meant someone had just lost a fight, or a limb, or both. From somewhere down the corridor a voice said, "A fine lizard for tonight's feast." Another answered, "Plump, tender, a good omen." Molt closed his eyes. "I hope I give the furry slinkers indigestion." Ginny drifted through the wall and settled beside him. She didn't speak at first. She simply slipped her small cold hand into his. He didn't pull away. After a moment she whispered, There, Mr. Lizard, help coming." Molt exhaled slowly. He didn't believe her. He thought about sending her, but she was tied to him now, anchored by whatever strange bond they shared. She couldn't wander far. She couldn't leave him. Neither could she untie his bonds with her little ghost fingers. He leaned his back against the stone. "Well," he murmured, "that's that." Ginny squeezed his hand. "Suffering syphilis," Molt muttered into the dark. Ginny perked up. "Go on, Gin." Molt huffed a tired laugh. No, Ginny, and if this goes badly, I might end up a ghost with you. Ginny shook her head fiercely. No ghost, Molt. I'll do my best, he said. Hours crawled by in the dark. The chanting rose and fell in cycles, each one sharper, hungrier. Molt lost track of how many ritual bouts he'd heard, how many victories, how many screams. Ginny stayed with him as the hours passed, drifting in small circles, humming to keep herself calm. Even she flinched at the ritual roars echoing through the tunnels. Molt felt a tremor, then heard a roar, next the sound of mustelids scattering in panic. The cell door burst open. A crocodile folk officer filled the doorway, armour gleaming, expression grim. Agent Molt, she said. Croc SWAT, we're here to extract you. Molt blinked. Oh! She hauled him upright with one clawed hand. Behind her, a full tactical unit advanced through the burrow, their presence radiating the kind of authority that did not negotiate with mustelids on Holy Weeks. The High Stoat shrieked from somewhere down the tunnel. Lizard scum! You defile our most sacred of Holy Weeks! The Croc SWAT captain replied. You kidnapped an agent of the office! The High Stoat snapped back, bristling with offended dignity. We did not kidnap! We accepted offering for week of red teeth feast! Molt, still half dazed, muttered, I'm an envoy, not an entree. He was marched out into the daylight, dazed, muddy, and profoundly humiliated. A Croc SWAT officer handed him his stolen belongings, satchel, coat, hat. They were scuffed, half chewed, but intact. He settled his hat onto his head, a small, quiet declaration that he was still Molt, an agent of the office despite everything. His dignity felt fractionally restored. Ginny floated after him. Mr. Feathers landed on his head, triumphant. Back at the office, Crix was waiting. He did not look relieved. He looked furious. Molt, he said, do you have any idea what you've done to mustelid diplomacy? We'll be apologising for decades. Molt rubbed his temples. I didn't know it was the week of red teeth. I've never even heard of it. Crix snapped. It's in the briefing packet. It's always in the briefing packet. Molt pulled the folder from his satchel and handed it over. Check again. Crix flipped through the pages. His expression shifted. Confusion, then disbelief, then something colder. That page should be here, he said quietly. It should be the first page. It's always the first page. Ginny floated closer. Mr. Feathers puffed up. Crix turned another page, then froze. The pike entry is wrong too. Agents are supposed to erect shield walls before entering the pike realm. He stared at Molt. This is sabotage. How are you alive? Molt shrugged. Professional courtesy? No, Crix said flatly. Luck. Stupid, impossible luck. Molt folded his arms. While we're on the subject, why did I get all the dangerous ones? The carnivores, the venomous ones, the ones with incident histories. This is a conspiracy. Crix winced. That part was me, he confessed sheepishly. Molt blinked. You? You annoy me, Crix said, not meeting his eyes. So I gave you the unpleasant ones. Not to kill you, just to... He paused. Well, just to piss you off, frankly. Molt stared at him. Of course you did. Molt took a breath. How did you know to send help? Crix hesitated, then held up a scrap of paper, crumpled, pigeon-pecked, and written in looping childish handwriting. Ginny sent a note, he said. Tied it to the pigeon. It landed on my desk, nearly knocked over my tea. Molt looked at Ginny. She beamed. Mr. Feathers puffed up proudly. Molt exhaled. Right. Crix closed the folder. We'll investigate the sabotage, but for now... Molt cut him off. I am taking a week off. Crix nodded. Good. Molt adjusted his satchel. I'm going to visit my mum. Ginny clapped. Mr. Feathers cooed approvingly. Molt walked out of the office, shoulders slumped, tail dragging slightly. Ginny drifted after him, humming. Mr. Feathers waddled at his heels like a tiny determined bodyguard. A normal week, Molt muttered. He was of course wrong, but that was a problem for later.